This episode is brought to you by our premier sponsors, Reese Fund and Armored Republic. We also bring this episode to you thanks to the generous donations from all of our supporters. You can make a donation by going to rightresponseministries.com/donate. You can go and support us today. This episode also comes to you thanks to all of our Patreon members. Go and check out patreon.com/rightresponseministries. So today's episode. Trump has now been in office for approximately 6 months, and during this time, his hands have been tied behind his back, in large part due to district judges that continue to overrule his executive orders. We've seen this happen again and again. One example recently is Trump wanting to put an end to birthright citizenship, which is the correct decision to make. Now, the good news is that the Supreme Court has just ruled that district judges cannot issue nationwide injunctions alone. Due to this ruling, for instance, in my home state, the state of Texas, there has been a law to restrict the use of pornography from minors that requires for them to provide identification. Granted, we'd like to see porn banned altogether, but this is a step in the right direction that those who are under the age of 18 would have to provide some kind of identification before they're able to access pornography. This law has been passed for 2 years, but it has not gone into effect because it has been held up by district judges. This will no longer be the case. Another example would be LGBTQ curriculum in schools in the state of Maryland. A school board, actually, instead of a district judge, in this case, it was a school board that went against a law that was passed in Maryland that allowed for parents to withdraw their students, withdraw their children to opt out of certain lessons that contained LGBTQ propaganda. And now that law will go into effect and the parents will have that right over their children. But it's been held up in the meantime. So this is a massive decision from the Supreme Court that allows our executive officials who are actually elected by the populace to be able to rule and carry out their job and push back on wickedness, particularly as it pertains to Donald Trump and ending birthright citizenship and hopefully, by God's grace, getting mass deportations. So where do we go from here? What are the next steps? We need more aggressive policies moving ahead. Now, the last thing that I'll mention is this. The dissenting judges, it was a 6-3 decision in the Supreme Court. Dissenting judges were Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor. And I would be remiss if I did not remind the listener, we're a Christian podcast. Isaiah says that one of the forms of God's judgment upon a conquered and rebellious people, God judging that nation, is that they would be ruled by women and children. I am aware that Coney Amy Barrett, she took the right position. She even wrote the majority opinion on this matter. I'd like to see her go home too. Right? Equal weights, equal measures. I'm going to be fair across the board, but it should not come to us as a coincidence that you have 3 dissenting opinions, 3 people saying, no, let's keep the anchor babies. Let's keep the immigrants. Let's keep, LGBT, in schools, all these kinds of things. And the president that the people of this nation actually chose to elect, he should have his hands tied behind his back. The 3 judges who dissented, again, Jackson, Kagan, Sotomayor, all 3 of them women. One of them, Kagan, is a Jew, and Sotomayor is a second-generation Puerto Rican immigrant. What we need, if we're going to succeed as a nation, we need many things. First and foremost, we need repentance of our sin and turning in faith to the Lord Jesus Christ. But in terms of practicalities, political solutions, we need men in office. We need them not to be Jewish or Islamic or anything else, but Christian men in office. And we need them to be American Christian men in office. I have a dream, brothers and sisters. It's a simple dream. I don't feel like it's that big of an ask. Right? There's other things we could get more technical. I've talked in more specificities about my position in the past, but if I could just have 3 things, it would be this. When it comes to the political rulers, the civil magistrate in our nation, I would like them to be Christian American men. Christian American men. Think about how crazy that is. We don't have, it's not just, we're missing the Christian piece because we're more of a secular. No, we don't have any of those 3 things. They're not men. They're not American. They're not American. We're looking at a mayor in New York who is not an American. So we're looking at immigrants and women and Muslims and Jews and atheists as the rulers of our nation, and wondering what happened, what's the problem, what's going on here. It should not be a surprise. So let's tune into this episode now. All right, here we are. GA.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We are going to do our best, and when I say we, I mean mostly me, to keep this episode on the short end. We all have obligations that we need to get to, and it's Friday, and there's just a lot going on. So I'm going to go ahead and let either Michael or Wes start off with this episode.
I'll jump right into the huge news. I mean, this ruling is incredible because what has happened. So let's pull apart the executive order demanding an end to birthright citizenship. So that was written in February, and a number of different plaintiffs then filed suit saying, hey, we're seeking relief from what we view as an infringement upon our constitutional rights.
These are people who were going to be deported or who were not going to be given citizenship.
They're somehow going to be affected by it. So they said, we're somehow going to be affected by it. They appealed to the 14th Amendment, equal protection, and said, you need to put a halt on this. And we remember we talked about it. Literally, there was like people being deported in the air. It was Judge Bosenberg. He's like, you need to bring them back. Literally ordering the administration from the bench. Here's what you need to do. You need to do it now. If you don't do it, you need to tell me why you haven't done it. And this was the story for the last 5 months. And it was infuriating. Like you guys have to understand this model of the judiciary ruling from the bench is not at all how the separation of powers, how the Constitution, how all the articles, this was not how it was designed to function. There's a reason the judiciary has no enforcement ability. They don't have an army. They don't have a guard. They don't have a sergeant. They're simply meant to be there to assist with interpretation and framing. But the executive has a lot of power. And for 5 months, that has been hamstrung. Well, we just got a slate. The Supreme Court, they've been releasing decisions throughout the week. And it was today that they released an opinion with Justice Amy Coney Barrett. She wrote the majority. So this was a 6-3 decision. So herself and the 5 other conservative justices on the court with Ketanji Brown Jackson writing the dissenting opinion. So 6-3 opinion, Jackson writing the dissenting, Barrett writing the majority. And they didn't really address necessarily the 14th Amendment. So can you end birthright citizenship? Can you not? Are these people eligible? What they got into was to basically say, listen, on behalf of these individuals, a judge cannot simply say, there's an 82-year-old grandmother who has a chihuahua that's dying and lives in a trailer home. And so on behalf of her, across the nation, I'm going to order an end to X, Y, and Z. They came down hard with an incredible ruling saying, okay, sure, maybe for that individual, you can say, listen, she's been here so long, we think she is eligible for equal protection, but it's for her only. All the rest of the people, that is what the executive said, and the executive has that power. And so this is really an incredible ruling. We're going to play a clip here from Trump in a minute talking about it, that all of a sudden opens up tons of other things. And then we have, of course, the big, beautiful bill. Senators are staying in D.C. over the weekend. It mandates a minimum of 1 million deportations a year. Now, that million a year is about 10% of what we really need. But guys, we've got to start somewhere, and we can get into this in the end. All of these elections, so putting time, money, and effort into elections, time and money into judicial review, time in legal battles, it can sometimes feel very frustrating. You put all the money into an election and you don't win it. Or you elect someone and they get up and they betray you. Or you put money into a Supreme Court case and they end up ruling against. A good example would be the abortion pills, which the Supreme Court basically declined to say, yeah, these should stop being legal. But we need time. And these rulings today, regardless of what you think about Trump, and we know the problems with the Supreme Court, they're giving us time in God's grace. Practically speaking, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not a couple million people a year that are no longer eligible for citizenship just because they took a vacation in the United States. That's huge. That's millions more people over the next couple of years. Even if we only have it for 3 years, that's millions more people that just simply won't be able to claim citizenship, won't be able to get their roots in here, won't be able to begin taking your Social Security, your this, your that. I'm white-pilled. It's Friday. I think this is great. And it kind of provides, all right, that was the next step. Now we keep moving forward from there.
It's great. We've talked about this before. I'll at least speak for myself. I think the problems that we've created are too big. I don't think we're going to be able to fix them within the system. Not entirely. So I don't think we can just democracy our way out of this. I don't think
we just got to elect good people.
Yeah, exactly. I've thought that, when I was younger and knew less of what was going on, but I don't think that's going to happen because I think that just even our system of government and, a constitutional republic is what we're supposed to have. That, like all of our founders said, that's fit for a particular type of person, namely a moral, upstanding, religious person, and we don't have that type of person today. We are a nation filled of degenerates. That said, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be accelerationist, right? So even if we think that this isn't going to get fixed by just democracy, even harder. And that instead it's probably going to get fixed by some kind of cataclysmic event, some Cromwellian figure that takes power, or balkanizing, where the country ends up getting split up into 3 or 4 or 5 different countries. Even if you think that that's more likely, and you're a student of history and you see that as being the most probable solution to the problems and what will likely occur, still, I don't want the nation. I have children. I don't want the nation to crash and burn. I don't want there to be blood in the streets. I don't want a civil war. Exactly. I don't want any of those things. And so if we keep heading that direction towards some kind of American Caesar or balkanizing or whatever it is, I would still like that to be as clean and peaceful of a process towards that switch as possible. I would like it to be as few casualties, as few deaths as absolutely possible. So if we can, buy ourselves a little bit of time by slowing immigration and deporting a bunch of people and these kinds of things as we continue to battle out, I think that is a positive, and that's something that all of us, regardless of where you're at on the right, pretty much everybody who's right wing should be able to say, yep, this is a win. We need more, but this is a win, and we're grateful.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention this is a really important ruling that has needed to happen for a long time, because this little maneuver where a district judge gives a national injunction on an executive order or something like that, this is a newer idea, and it actually was never, like if some of you are familiar with something like Robert's Rules of Order, which is how a board has to conduct itself. They agree these are the rules that we're going to use whenever we meet. We'll have motions, we'll have seconds, all of those sorts of things. Organizations have rules that they use to conduct their business. And there are certain rules for what judges are allowed to do, what they're allowed to strike down, that have just been built up over time that weren't part of the Constitution, but just over time they decided like this would be a good rule. I'm not saying all of them have been good rules. Like judicial review, I think, was a problem. But my point is this thing where a small district judge can give an injunction that applies to a national group, a national class, a national kind of target is new. And it's never been introduced into the rules for how the government runs itself. And so we have actually needed clarity on this point for a long time. It was in the 1960s with the Civil Rights Act that judges first, they weren't giving national injunctions, but they were giving large injunctions like to a school district. That was where it started, is one district judge, instead of speaking just to a teacher or a principal, was like, would say to an entire school district, you must all do this. Even though the student who may or may not have been affected by the law was not in that other school, the judge was able to start applying it broadly and saying, all you schools over there that don't have someone who's suing have to follow this. So from the 60s, and then it has just branched out until in the early 2000s and the 2010s was really when judges started giving national injunctions that would countermand an executive order for the entire country. And so this is something that has done a lot of damage to just how presidents are able to, and to be fair, conservative judges and liberal judges have done this against Republican presidents and Democratic presidents through the 2010s. Nevertheless, this is something that has yet to be decided and has really been kind of a loophole that courts have been able to exploit to have one judge basically impose his own view of the law or politics on the entire country, which when I think Amy Coney Barrett quoted Ketanji Brown Jackson. Ketanji Brown Jackson had said at one point that we don't want presidents to have unlimited authority, and we don't want judges to have it. Well, what really happens is we've just replaced the unlimited authority that the president is not supposed to have with a district judge who now speaks for the entire country.
Yeah, I think Amy said something along the lines of like, this unharnessed executive power.
Yeah.
And it's like, so
let's read this quote from her. This is why we put
on
them
the flip side.
thumbnail.
It's just unharnessed judicial power. Yeah, there it is.
This is one of the greatest dunks.
Yep.
Like
Yeah,
just
it was good.
2-sentence dunks that you've probably.
I'd prefer to
at
see
least
it
on
from
the
a
legal
man.
side.
Yeah.
I know. Honestly, probably Clarence Thomas wrote that. And it was
That's
like,
true.
I'll include
that
it.
makes it better. And it's
the
since we're
majority
speaking of
collaborate.
dunks, Clarence Thomas
They do
would
collaborate.
He would be the guy on the Supreme Court who
Well,
could
he's-
dunk a ball. You know what I mean? So I feel like I
Well, he
would
wrote
like to
the
believe it's
majority
from Clarence.
on the Texas porn bill.
Right.
So it was
good
him on
for
the
him.
majority and
Good for
Kagan on
him.
the dissent.
He's my guy.
But listen to this dunk. So this is from this majority opinion of the court from the decision just came down today. If you're just joining us, saying that district judges cannot injunct nationwide. Barrett says this: "We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this: Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive, a powerful, all-powerful executive, while embracing an imperial judiciary.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody should have unlimited power unilaterally across the nation. The judiciary should."
Yeah.
That's literally what she's doing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And listen to her. I'm going to keep reading it and continue a little bit. She continues, "Nobody disputes that the executive has a duty to follow the law. No one's saying he doesn't. But the judiciary does not have unbridled authority to enforce this obligation. In fact, sometimes the law prohibits the judiciary from doing so. See, for example, Mayberry versus Madison. Observing the limits on judicial authority, including, as relevant here, the boundaries of the Judiciary Act of 1789, is required by a judge's oath to follow that law." And it's funny, she says again, Justice Jackson skips over that part because analyzing the governing statutes involves boring legalese. And she literally quotes her as in, guys, the weight of the Constitution, the weight of the original setup of judges, the weight even of the judge's oath of office, all testify against. You cannot have a judge in Hawaii at 2 a.m. in the morning say, you can't deport 2 million people that are here illegally.
Yep.
Right.
That is insane.
Turn the plane around.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So really an important rule that I guess what we're saying is it seems most likely that this will unclog or unblockade a lot of the executive orders in other areas
That's
that
what it
Trump
seems
has put into place, right? So he theoretically will be able to issue an executive order, and it won't be able to be blocked nationally by one district judge. So it's beyond, even though the deportation case that this came from is an important one that we want to win. It's much bigger than that. It really, we need to get spending still, like you mentioned, Wes. But this is a huge impediment to the president being able to carry out what he's trying to do that theoretically has been lifted at this point.
Let's watch a clip from him and then we'll go to our commercial break. But it's kind of called We Do a Little Caesar. Basically for 3 years now. Sure, he can't literally spend money at will.
Right.
But he can kind of do what he wants. We just have to get our guy in here in 2028.
Right. For the next 3 years, Trump can do what he wants, and I hope that he wants to do some great stuff for this country.
We can
and
do
not
what we
just
want,
Israel.
man.
800 billion more to Israel.
800. It's like we finally got the freedom that we
we have
need.
the power.
That
1
would be-
trillion
Yeah.
to
That would be
Israel.
the
We're going to rescue Bibi from international court that he's going up to. Send in the Marines. Let's watch this clip from him responding to this decision.
Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law. This decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation.
Do you believe this ends the power of the lower court judges to stop your agenda? Do you see this as a full green light for your agenda going forward?
Well, you'd have to really speak to the lawyers about that, but this is really also a decision based on common sense.
So yes, he does see it that way, which is wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he just needs to keep the American people in mind.
I remember
Go ham.
And birthright citizenship, that is a pro-America policy.
It is.
Through and through.
We speculated, and we were not the only ones, but people were speculating that he was intentionally doing orders and trying to enforce them in a way that would require that the Supreme Court get involved specifically to ask and answer this question that they ruled on today. And so
I can see that.
We on this show said it seems like maybe that's what he's doing. He's poking here in such a way. It's like, you know, when mom and dad, the kids are just kind of squabbling a little bit, they kind of ignore them. But then when one like smacks the other one in the back of the head, then mom and dad have to get involved. I'm not saying the Supreme Court is mom and dad, but we speculated on this show that he's poking strong enough that it's going to provoke the Supreme Court having to take action on this question.
To deal with the actual principle of who's in charge. Is it the executive president that was elected by the people, or is the person in charge these random district judges?
And the conflict will probably come. But you can imagine if in like first 30 days, a judge said, hey, you can't do that, and Trump straight up defied it, the left would have chimped. They would have freaked out. And still probably there will come a conflict. But every single day, I really believe this, more young men are waking up, more families are having children, more churches are growing. The longer you can delay that inevitable conflict, I really think plays in our favor. And so practically, thinking politically, this is not like, oh, it was a 16D chess plan all along. But practically speaking, in this case, by not defying, and Miller was furious, Stephen Miller, he was furious about the deportations and what the judges were doing. But practically by working through these avenues and working to exhaust them first, you avoid a type of cataclysmic confrontation that would have burned cities, that would have stalled spending bills, for instance. Like, this is politics. It's tough. Your base is mad at you. It's 3 months in. You're like, why is he letting this rogue judiciary just roll over him? Well, look at this now. We have a green light.
If the Supreme Court had voted the other way, like if Coney Barrett and Roberts had gone with the three
would have been the
liberals, then it would have been really a question of if Trump is going to. But that really would have been the time to pull out all the stops and say, yeah, no, you're not in charge, and I'm going to show you that you're not in charge.
Let's go to our first commercial break. We'll be right back.
The danger of centralized power is often represented by the word king. As Americans, we hate the word king. Civilian ownership of body armor is about helping people to have increased power to resist tyrants and criminals. And so, Armored Republic is about helping you to preserve your God-given rights to the honor of the Lord Jesus Christ, because he is the King of Kings, and he governs kings and he will judge them. This is Armored Republic, and in a republic, there is no king but Christ. We are free craftsmen, and we are honored to be your armorsmith of choice.
At Kingsmen Caps, we believe that every man is called to carry the crown. That is, to seek out and gain glory, and ultimately to give that glory to Christ. Our hats aren't just apparel, they're a symbol of sacred duty. We're forming a coalition of men who walk with conviction, courage, and humility, knowing the honor we bear is not ours to claim, but ours to carry. Through Kingsmen Caps, we are starting a brotherhood of men who live to honor Christ as King, and who will one day lay their crowns at his feet. Every Kingsman Cap is crafted with premium materials, rugged construction, and timeless designs made to endure the burdens and battles of life. We've just released our newest colorway, the Illumination, an all-white country fit featuring a bold 5-panel design and a clean white-on-white logo. It's built for those who walk in the light. Join the brotherhood and carry the crown. And if you're building God's kingdom through your own business, brand, or venture, we now offer custom hat orders with an easy process and a 100 hat minimum per style and color. Step 1. Go to kingsmencaps.com to contact us with your custom hat inquiry. Step 2. Send us your logo and brand colors. Step 3. Choose your hat style and details. Step 4. We'll take care of the rest. Carry the crown because Christ is King. Go to KingsmenCaps.com to get yours today and join the Brotherhood. Running your business with purpose means looking beyond last month's numbers to next year's vision. Kaylee Smith offers CFO-level strategy scaled just for small businesses. At Midstate Accounting, she takes care of your compliance, bookkeeping, and tax returns while providing holistic advisory and fractional CFO services to help you steward your resources with a distinctly Christian perspective. Ready to align your finances with your future? Then call Kaylee Smith at 573-889-7278 for a free, no-obligation consultation. Mention the Right Response podcast to get 10% off your first 3 months. Prefer to explore online? Then you can visit midstateaccounting.net to learn more or schedule a call. Again, that's midstateaccounting.net. With Midstate Accounting, you'll plan for tomorrow while operating in faith today. So call Kaylee Smith at 573-889-7278. Again, that's 573-889-7278.
Okay, so one of the things that was notable about that decision was that it was 6-3. And so all the quote, and Wes, you said this already, the quote unquote conservative judges sided with the administration on this question. Sometimes a legal case will come through the Supreme Court and it'll be a 9-0 decision. And that's usually on some procedure that, all sides have to just agree, like that was being misapplied. That was a procedure that clearly is wrong. But when you see a 6-3 decision, usually with the court that we have right now, that's an indication of sanity versus insanity, right? Even with our liberal, quote unquote, conservative justices, if all 6 of them side on one side of an issue, we don't get 1 or 2 of them going with the liberals. Right. That's usually a pretty clear sign that even they have to recognize that this has to be the way that life and society and reality works. So the reason I'm bringing that up is the Supreme Court hears a lot of cases and then it issues rulings in batches. Well, a lot of rulings came out today, Friday the 27th. And so we're going to highlight a few of them that just came through. But the thing to note with this, these are not all of them that came through. I think there were like 20 or something like that. But the thing to note with this is all of these that we have on the screen were also 6-3 decisions. All the conservatives sided against the liberal judges in deciding this. So the first one,
just a couple months ago, we were highlighting Barrett's terrible decision on a different immigration-related case.
Yes.
So even that signifies a transition.
Mahmoud versus Taylor. This was the one that Joel mentioned in the opening monologue, where parents were not allowed to opt their children out of this LGBTQ indoctrination in schools. And so the Supreme Court said, no, they have to be able to do this. And I think it was Alito or Thomas who wrote the decision on this, or the opinion, said this is a violation of the freedom of religion because parents ought to be able to it's so interesting. Like nowhere in our Constitution is there a right of parents over their children. That was so assumed for all of history, right? So this didn't actually give parents a right over their children, but it did say parents have the right to instruct their children in religious matters. So
I like the bringing of the LGBTQ into the question of hey, this is a religious thing because back with Dobbs versus Jackson, the women's health decision, it was Thomas that also mentioned, hey, there's a potential there that we revisit Obergefell versus Hodges.
That's a good point. On
revisit this as, hey, maybe this wasn't the best thing, and we're seeing it infringing on religious rights right now.
That's good.
The second one was the Free Speech Coalition versus Paxson. This is the one that we mentioned earlier, where our Attorney General here in Texas has been suing to allow Texas to put its law into place requiring ID verification for people to access pornography online. So again, 6-3.
It's insane. 3 women no, you are,
think about that.
You, the state,
it's crazy.
Are we don't think that you're allowed to just make sure minors don't access this. And it was Kagan, a Jewish woman. She's a practicing conservative Jew. Which was like, no, children need to be. You can't put up a barrier.
From what I've seen, That's an actual position, conservative
Judaism.
Yeah, it is.
And conservative Judaism, I'm sure there are exceptions, as there always are, but by and large seems pretty perversion friendly.
I mean, imagine, like, we talk about the motherly instinct.
I know.
That women have, and sometimes that's why their decisions, legal decisions, are squishy. Right. We know how damaging pornography is to all people, but to children
and Kagan
especially.
cites that in her dissent. Like, we know it's bad,
yeah,
but literally, like, it would infringe, because what happens is when you have something like this, it's called the chilling effect. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you have to put an ID in, the same thing if you visit like a liquor website, and if it were to ask you, like, you need to put your ID in. It makes you
rethink the decision.
Exactly. To prove you're 21, someone's like, I have my ID on me. I don't want my info being given. And so they don't do it. So all of these terrible sites are coming and saying, hey, this law, it infringes on our free speech because it's being chilled. And 3 court justices were basically like, yeah, we agree. Nobody should at any point be encumbered before viewing X, Y, and Z.
Well, the irony here is that
Paxton.
Liberals oppose that sort of law when it comes to showing ultrasounds before abortions.
Correct.
And so not that it's any surprise now, but the double standard is incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right.
Okay, number 3. This was an interesting one.
This was yesterday.
Medicaid versus Planned Parenthood. This allows states to withhold Medicaid reimbursements or to bar Planned Parenthood services and treatments, which we know is abortion, from Medicaid reimbursement. And so up to this point, you were allowed to get an abortion. If you were low income, you could have the state pay for it through Medicaid. And I forget which state withdrew funding from Planned Parenthood reimbursements. And then, of course, it went up to the Supreme Court. And now states, but this is going to open the door to a lot of things. States will be able to now start saying, with our state money, we basically are allowed to do what we want. We don't have to fund everything that you tell us or would like us to fund.
Right.
So. Well, the ruling too was that they're not subject to judicial challenge. So a judge can't come into Medicaid and say, you have to cover Ozempic or you can't cover this, that, or the other.
Yep.
No, the states have the leeway.
Yes.
Which is what it was intended to be.
Yes.
It was Robert E. Lee who warned. He's like, if you gather all these states under one big federal government, it's going to get despotic. It's going to come into a state with their Medicaid and their budget and tell them they have to cover this. And the Supreme Court rightly saying, no, the judge doesn't have authority over that budget area of what a state spends its money on.
Yep. Right. United States versus Scrimeti. This was the one in Tennessee that made a lot of headlines. This one came out a week or two ago, where Tennessee was trying to ban puberty blockers and hormone therapy for minors. I originally thought, Wes, that it also blocked surgeries, transition surgeries. But I didn't see that when I read back over it today. So
if it blocks the hormone therapy, then I'm sure.
Basically de facto.
I mean, that's an argument for from the lesser to the greater, I feel like.
Yep. Again, it's only for minors, but like you said earlier, Wes, politics and steps. And
if it blocks chemical castration, it blocks physical castration.
Yep. So that was really encouraging. And I guess the other thing that the listener needs to realize is, that happened in Tennessee, but like we said earlier, all of these decisions, the way our law works in the U.S.,
there's a domino effect.
A partially common law situation that we inherited from the English common law system and a written out legal code. And the decisions that are made open the door. It's kind of, alternate pathways, and they open the door for other people or states or entities to then try and pass similar legislation in their own state without the ability for people to challenge when Oklahoma does it or Texas does it or things like that. So this would potentially open the door for all states to ban hormone therapy and things like that within their state for minors.
Right.
It's not just about Tennessee. It's a much bigger thing.
Yep.
And then we really mention number 5. This is the one that we spent our first segment talking about most of all, the deportation to third countries.
No, this is actually a different one.
Oh, this is a different one.
This was from about a week ago now.
Yes, you're right.
It was an injunction that was like, hey, you can't deport them without requiring to show that they have a risk of potential harm.
Yep.
And it just relieved them from the injunction and said, no, like you don't have to necessarily show this when you're deporting illegal immigrants. You can send them, in this case, to third world countries.
I remember now
you're not going to Sweden.
Because what Trump was trying to do was, if people immigrated from Nicaragua and he wanted to deport them back to Nicaragua, we have to have deportation arrangements with these countries. And so I don't remember if it was Nicaragua or not. I don't mean to demean Nicaragua if this is not their policy, but I'm using it as an example. There were countries who were saying, yeah, we know that we sent a bunch of illegal immigrants, aliens, to the United States, but we are not going to allow you to fly them back and drop them off in our country. We're not going to sign that deal. So Trump's solution was, okay, well, we'll send them to a different country that is more near to where they are, and it may be more culturally or linguistically similar, like it was doing with El Salvador, putting them in the prisons in El Salvador. And so Trump's solution was, that country is not going to allow us to send people back to them. We're going to send those aliens back to just some other country. And this decision allows Trump, because that was another big roadblock to deportations, is we could intend to deport them all along, but legally we have to have an arrangement with the receiving country to receive them. And so if you've got, 1 million people from Nicaragua and Nicaragua says you can't bring them back, for all intents and purposes, they would just be stuck here.
Right.
So being able to send them to a third country is a good workaround, and now it's a legal workaround.
Like, what's Sudan going to do? Like, go to war with us and be like,
Right.
we're not taking them. No.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we want to do. We're going to go early to our second commercial break. But when we come back, we have important news for Right Response Ministries and some future directions, some big announcements, exciting things coming down the pipeline for the future, and a personal announcement, an update from our very own Michael Belch. And so we want to be able to have enough time to talk about that, and then save a little bit of time at the end if there are any super chats. So if you have a super chat, feel free to send it in. We'll try to get to that at the very end of the episode. And then also for everybody who's listening right now, do us a favor and like the video, and then also share it if you're willing to. If you're following us on X, especially, just retweeting the video helps tremendously. If you don't follow us on X and you're watching on YouTube, we live stream simultaneously on YouTube and X. And so if you're on YouTube and you want to start following us on X, our live stream is available there right when it happens. So go to X and check out @RightResponseM. That's the handle, @RightResponseM. And if you are on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell if you want to be updated every single time that we're doing the live stream. Okay, so let's go to our last commercial break for the day.
What if your family's financial strategy was built on more than just numbers? What if it was built on Scripture? At Private Family Banking, we believe managing wealth is more than just good planning. It's a God-given privilege and responsibility. In Genesis and Deuteronomy, and all the way into the New Testament, God calls us to be fruitful, wise, and faithful with what He provides. We help Christian individuals, families, and small businesses grow, protect, and pass on wealth anchored in timeless biblical principles to the glory of God in the advancement of His kingdom. Schedule your free discovery call today at liberationeconomy.com.
I'd like to introduce you to a book called Onruling. It's a book written by a group of guys who live down here in Texas. Now, the subtitle reads this: An Everyday Guide for Christian Patriarchs. And that's precisely what this book is. Now, I'll tell you what this book is not. It's not a Bible study. It's not a devotional. And it's not a boring retread book about leadership or leveling up. No, this book is designed to get you thinking about how to seize more ground and then bring it under good governance. Now, most men are not aware that our mandate is to build civilization right where we are, with a winning culture. We tend to want to outsource that responsibility, or just try to get more comfortable. But that is not what our lives are to be about, gentlemen. Regardless of how many talents our master gave us, we should be making moves to see an increase in all spheres of our lives. One day he will return and ask for our reports. So this book is about all that. It's about governing your heart, household, and enterprise so that the kingdom of God advances. Onruling is a great book for group study with you and your fellow men, or perhaps even something that you can read in the deer stand. So go and get Onruling now from Western Front Books at the link below. That's www.westernfrontbooks.com. Heaven's Harvest takes pride in providing you with the best freeze-dried emergency survival food kits on the market. Their kits stand out because they prioritize serving sizes and calories that will sustain you for the long haul. No gimmicks, no fillers, just a diverse array of nutritious options that will pleasantly surprise you. But they're more than just emergency food. They're advocates for sustainable preparedness. Their heirloom seed kits include heirloom, non-GMO, non-hybrid, open-pollinated seeds, ensuring that your garden produces the same quality and variety year after year. Packaged in high-grade mylar foil, their seeds have a 10-year shelf life. So get 10% off your Heaven's Harvest order by using our special discount code RRM at checkout or by clicking the link in the description below. Made in the USA and free shipping on orders above $99 for the US only. All right, here we are.
All right, welcome back. Joel mentioned some exciting news, and actually, there will be more exciting news over the next months and things like that. Plans, always trying to make the show better and more available, all of those things. This is a little bit of a sad news today.
Yeah.
I am moving on from Right Response Ministries in my official capacity here, and we want to be upfront. There are two primary reasons. The first reason is I have had growing for a while a desire to do a creative project. And I wrote a book a couple years ago, but what I have in mind for this creative project is going to be almost all consuming. I've been with teaching schedule in the summer. I've been putting about 30 hours a week into it recently, just getting this going. And so I'm excited about this project. It's not going to be coming out till the fall, Lord willing. But I'm trying to recapture the myths and stories that created the American identity from even from the European legends that we inherited from the Dutch and the English and the French and things like that. We actually, as Americans, as we started writing our own stories, we just kind of iterated on the themes and the stories and even some of the characters that we inherited from our European forefathers. And so I've had a great desire to take those stories and legends, put them in a slightly more modern form, and get them back out into circulation. So examples of really well-known ones would be things like The Legend of Sleepy Hollow or Rip Van Winkle, things like that. So I'm going to be releasing those in audio form with slightly modernized language and sound and, spooky things, a little bit Haunted Cosmos style, or if any of you know the podcast Creepcast, they do this with ghost stories. So if any of you know that, that's kind of the inspiration. And then at the end of each season of that, putting those stories that are slightly modernized so that maybe a 12-year-old can read it and not be confused by the language, put all of the stories into collections, bound collections, and release those. And so I want to spend maybe a year, 18 months going through all the regions of kind of the earlier parts of America. They all developed, what's really interesting to me is they all developed their own stories and legends, but they're all kind of connected with what the American identity is. And so I want to be able to throw myself into that project with a lot of commitment, a lot of focus. I'll just give a plug now. The publishing company that I have that I publish my book through is called Iron Screw Publishing. And like I said, this won't be coming out until probably September. But down the road, if you check out Iron Screw Publishing, that's where things will be released through. Cool. Now, I want to also be upfront and make sure it doesn't sound like. I think the listener and the watcher knows I'm a little bit more of the dissenting voice on some of the things that we talk about here on the show. So I'm not being pushed out. Joel's not being pushed out. In fact, Joel and I have been having the conversation of when I transition out for a little while now. Yeah. And each time it comes up, he's like, yeah, but not yet. Right, but hold on, just wait, And so Joel has actually tried to hold on to me, so I'm incredibly grateful for that. But in the same way that with Paul and Barnabas, kind of different perspectives, and you can imagine if Paul and Barnabas, if they had gone together and they'd taken John Mark with them, Paul would have just spent the whole time grumbling about John Mark, right? Rather than focusing on what he was supposed to do. So because I'm a little bit different in some of the views, and I just don't want to be pushing back all the time. I don't necessarily want to be always having the conversations on the stream or even behind the closed doors of disagreement or dissent, I want you guys to be able to also focus on your project really, really well, and pursue forward with as much vigor and enthusiasm and energy as you can. So the last couple months, there are a couple times where I felt like a little bit of an anchor. I don't think you guys ever made me feel that way, but just knowing the reality of it. So,
and it's a tough spot. So Michael and I are good friends, and we have, offline, we have regular meetups, and we'll talk about where we're at, and he'll voice, like if he has a different opinion, or if he's, I don't know if that's right, and then I'll give my reasoning, and sometimes we'll agree, but then there's other times where we disagree, but neither of us anathematizing either one, both of us with immense respect for one another, as brothers in Christ, but it puts him in this, it's kind of an unfair situation is what I've come to realize, because I just haven't wanted you to go. So I keep saying okay, you want to transition out, and I'll start working on that transition first thing in 2030. I'll get right on it. In the year of our Lord 2035. So I've been kind of dragging my feet, and he's like, Joel, I feel like I need to go. And one of the things that's helped me is him helping me see that when he does have a dissenting opinion, and he could be right and we could be wrong, or vice versa, but when he does have a dissenting opinion, he's trying, and I have never said, to Wes or Michael that they can't ever disagree with me. Right. So I want to be clear with that. But still, even though that's not like some law of the land, it's not a requirement, he's still, he's just torn in this space of I don't want the whole podcast to end up becoming a debate. And so he's sitting there trying not to argue, but then if he doesn't voice his dissent, if he doesn't voice that he disagrees, then it's like he's on camera right alongside us, and if he's not dissenting, then it comes across as though he has all the same views as we do, and he doesn't. And so it's not fair for when I'm going viral, Right Wing Watch.
Have you done that before?
A couple times, but it's not fair if Right Wing Watch is picking me up, and I'm going uber viral, and the camera happens in that clip to shift to the wide shot. And Michael's sitting next to me, he's and he's trying his best.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. And he's trying his best not to be argumentative, and he doesn't want to be a concerned bro, because he's not. He always voices these things very maturely, and he never anathematizes or anything like that. So he's trying not to be a concerned bro, but on the other hand, he's like, yeah, Joel, I don't know if I necessarily want you to drag me in front of millions of people on your viral circuits when I don't even agree with the position that you're espousing. So it's not really fair for him to, it's either, so I'm either a concerned bro on the show, designated concerned bro. So now I have voiced my dissent. So now I'm not, getting dragged, when you get dragged on the internet, I'm not getting dragged for an opinion that I don't even hold. But then I'm a concerned bro, and I'm kind of dragging back the show, and it becomes more of a debate and less of a positive vision of we think this and we're trying to push forward towards that. And so the more we've talked about it, Michael has been very gracious and helped me to see. It's basically kind of like a genie in Aladdin. He's like, free me. You have a third wish, set me free, Joel. Let me just do my thing. And so anyway, so we love each other. My wife loves his wife. Yep. Our families are close, all those kinds of things. His oldest daughter will occasionally babysit our kids. Yep. And so everything is good.
My kids do piano lessons with your mom.
That's right. My mom teaches piano lessons with your kids. So so everything is good over here.
There was one thing that tipped it over the edge, though, that I just want to address the rumors. Go ahead. I bought a Subaru. And no, that's not true. I did not buy a Subaru.
Yeah. He's like, the one thing that tipped it over the edge, you would think it was Nick Fuentes in the thumbnail, but it was actually the fact that he bought a Subaru, and we kicked him off the show.
And I bought a Tesla last week, and he's just like, this is going too many different directions.
Well, Wes is Tesla maxing, and I'm Subaru maxing.
Just too many gay cars out there. Yes. So anyway, so that we wanted to let you guys know about that. And then a lot of these things we want to keep close to the chest because there's more specificity that we're not ready to include at this juncture. And so we're going to wait a little bit later, but I'll give you kind of some generalities of future vision for Right Response. We are going to continue kind of much the same. So what will the show be like starting next week? It's going to be me and Wesley Todd. And then occasionally we're going to be piping in different guys you guys have seen when we have people remotely join. And then there'll be other times where you guys saw when Michael was out on vacation this last week, we had Antonio join us. Antonio's a member in good standing in our church. And so Antonio, kind of Michael now is officially going to be transitioning out. And Antonio is not a full transition in, but kind of coming in a little bit because he still has other endeavors and other work responsibilities and things like that. But we are going to be moving towards Antonio being more of kind of our third host. And so for the remainder of this year, you'll see more of him, but you won't necessarily see him every episode. But you'll see more of Antonio. And we think he's done a great job and has some good things to say. And then you also will see us, probably piping in some more guests, getting some more voices outside of Right Response Ministries. And then in terms of topics and themes, much the same, political, cultural, theological. That said, the new year, this is what I can't really divulge at this point, but we have massive plans for the year of our Lord 2026. And we're going to be starting the very first week of January. And we have secured funds, funding, and all these different things that we need in order to do some things that I think will be shocking and surprising for everyone, and I think incredibly exciting for everyone. So Right Response is going to be taking it to a whole nother level, and not just a new studio, although it actually does involve a new studio, but not just like we've in the past. It's like we upgrade our studio, or we moved to, back in the day, it was just me. We moved to co-host. But this is going to be blow all that out of the water. So it's not just a studio change and not just maybe a new co-host, but some big changes, big projects for Right Response. And so we're excited about that. And we will probably, and we'll give more announcements as we get closer. We still have, 6 months. We're only halfway through this year, and this won't be until, again, the first week of January. But we probably just kind of preparing you guys ahead of time. We're going to just keep doing what we're doing with Antonio popping in, with guests, piping in remotely, and probably go all the way through November. And then we will probably, for the month of December, go dark, as the kids say. Not completely. We'll probably do some reruns and maybe have a few pre-recorded episodes, but kind of take a break for, instead of just the holidays at the end of the month, pretty much the entirety of that month to set everything in order, and then launch with our brand new idea that we have, our vision that we have, the first week of January in 2026. So that's where we're at. Wes, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I can just back up. Ever since, when did you first start coming to Covenant? Would it have been 2022?
It was October of 22.
Since 2022, almost immediately that you've come, we've been good friends, close friends, not just me and you, but our wives. We love your children, and all of that continues. We love the Belches, and it's been great co-hosting with you. And
Okay.
There was one question that somebody asked earlier that I forget who it was. They asked what part of Washington I'm from, so I was just going to mention that. You said you were from Spokane. I also was born in Spokane and went to college in Spokane, but I didn't really grow up there.
And there's lots of love in the chat for you, Michael. You were talking, so I'm not sure if you saw it, but people really appreciate
that very much.
Your time here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay, so we have one super chat for today. If it was just a question, I probably wouldn't even address it, just because I have already addressed this, and this is no shade on the person who sent it. It's Philip Schneider. We appreciate it. Perfectly fair question. But since he put it as a super chat, we want to do our best to always answer all the super chats. So he says, Joel, did you hear what Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes said about you yesterday? He thinks that you are phenomenal, very well spoken. He said that he wants to reach out, maybe do a collaboration on a different platform. He put AF, that's Nick's platform. So maybe on his own platform, America First.
Which we got to bump our numbers up, guys. That's a 4-hour podcast.
That's
Joel, you could do it though.
I could do it. Yeah,
you could.
Stop holding me back, guys. No. So I appreciate the question. So I'll just give kind of the same answer that I did with the episode that we did. I believe that episode was on Monday. Is that right? On Monday of this week. So we did an episode and we said, basically just saying we think Nick has been right about geopolitics in the Middle East, particularly as it pertains to Israel and the recent conflict with Iran. And so we did a whole episode on that, and we gave him, we publicly said his name. From my perspective, obviously people disagree with me. We got flack for that. We got appreciation. We got, people dissenting, we, all across the board, per usual. But we, to be fair, not exactly usual. We got the same kind of response. We're for it. We're against it. but multiplied by 10 in terms of the numbers. Just a lot of people, a lot of eyeballs, got a lot of eyeballs. And so, same thing that we said, like in that episode, my opinion, right or wrong, my opinion is, I feel like I have, there's been times where it's nothing to brag about. It's not because of me. It's all the mercy and grace of God. But there's been times where I've seen something a little bit ahead of the 8 ball, a little bit ahead of the curve. And then, everybody changes their tune, 6 months later or 3 years later or whatever it may be. But in my personal experience over the course of my life, a lot of times people will they'll strongly disagree with you at the time, and even try to ruin your life and give you a lot of flack and all those kinds of things. And then eventually come around to your position, but not come around to you in terms of your person. So that they'll end up holding the same position, but not actually give you credit. COVID is one of probably the strongest examples etched in my mind for probably the rest of my life. All of us probably have, PTSD from all the tyranny and the insanity of COVID. But with that, I remember having, sharp disputes with people that I loved and still love, and sharp disagreements, and them thinking that I was just absolutely retarded and foolish for thinking that the church should gather during that time. And because we were in California, it would have been, technically defying orders, from Gavin Newsom and all these different things. And then eventually those people change their position. But this is what I've noticed is the funny thing is that people will change their position, but still maintain that they were right to hold the opposite position previously. So they basically will say, I believe X, Y, and Z. I now believe A, B, and C. And A, B, and C directly contradicts X, Y, and Z. However, I'm right now, and somehow I was also right then. It's amazing. It truly is amazing. With COVID, the way, the most common way that people did it, you'll remember this. Maybe you had parents who made these arguments where they'll say, well, I was right to be as fearful as I was, and to comply with, tyrannical orders, and to forsake the gathering of the brethren with the church, and to do this and do that. And I was right to get my 7th booster and all these things, because that was the data at the time. But now we have better data, and so I've actually changed my opinion, but I'm right now, and I was right then, because the science changed, where the medical science did not, in fact, change. It was the political science that changed. People finally got fed up, and as soon as they were fed up, lo and behold, all of a sudden the tyranny went away. And so that's actually my mind probably for the rest of my life. And so with that, we did that episode with Nick. He wasn't on the show, but about Nick, and really, covering stuff in the Middle East, but giving him credit because I think that it's worth giving someone credit. It's one thing if there's plenty of times where there's 100 different voices all saying something, and you kind of can pick and choose which person you want to quote, right? Which name you want to actually publicize. And there are good, discerning, wise reasons why, 100 people might be saying this thing that's true, and you quote these 3 of them and not these other 97 of them, because you don't necessarily want to boost this particular person's profile for this reason, because yes, they were right about this, but maybe they're really bad on this and this and this. And so there's occasions where I think it's perfectly, like, you don't have to give public credence to every single person who took the right position on every single issue that you cover. There's no rule that says you have to do that. In the case of the conflict with Israel and Iran, I'm sure, there's nothing new under the sun. I'm sure that Nick was not the only one, but I think he was one of the only ones who didn't just see this coming, a week in advance or a month in advance, but very early on, October 8th, this is what we said in the episode. We showed a clip where, October 8th, he was saying, not that Israel actually, attacked themselves, but we're talking about Israeli intelligence, which is the most sophisticated in the world, even arguably superior to our own. You got hang gliders, right? They're moving pretty slow, like you see them in the sky, and 45 minutes later they'll touch the ground, and yet Israel isn't able to stop it. It seems a little bit suspicious, and then that has been used for the last year and a half, almost a year now, as the total moral justification for Israel to do just about anything they want to their enemies, and particularly Iran. And so then he talked about this will be used in moral justification. There'll be this attack, from Israel to Iran, and then Iran will retaliate in this way, and then the U.S. will be involved and will drop bombs. And he kind of nailed it. And so anyway, so that was the show. And somebody asked me, on that live stream from Monday, whether or not we would have Nick come on to the show. And I said, it depends on the topic and what we would talk about, whether or not we would collaborate, those kinds of things. But in general, my answer is yes. My answer is yes, that I would be willing to have a conversation. I don't like cancel culture. And that doesn't mean that I'm willing to talk to anybody about anything. But yeah, I think that the answer is yes. And that's how we framed it. So you sent a super chat, so I wanted to honor that and give you an answer. Wes, do you have any follow-up thoughts to that at all?
Nope.
No? Okay. Any other super chats, Nathan?
I think that's it.
Okay. That's all we got for the show. Let's enjoy the weekend.
Yeah.
We will be back on Monday. Friday, a week from today, is July 4th. And so that's a holiday. So we're not going to be live streaming on Friday, but we're going to come in. Wes and I will come in probably with Antonio on Monday. And then on Wednesday, we have a special guest that'll be joining us. So we're excited about that. So thank you guys.
Is it Nick Fuentes?
No. So thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate all the support. And obviously, we all greatly appreciate you, Michael, and the way that you've served us for about a year and a half now. Michael, last year, it was just the Wednesday live stream. So it was
crazy.
one day a week.
It's wild.
We were
Yeah,
at
I know.
that table too.
Everything
it's around
feels
the table.
longer.
Yep.
Everything feels longer, but it really has not been that long. But anyway, so a year and a half ago is when both Michael and Wes joined us, and it was just weekly on Wednesdays, just once a week, all of last year. And then this year is the first time that we went to 3 times a week with all 3 of us, Monday and Wednesday and Friday. So it's been about 6 months of doing it 3 times, and then a week, and then a year of doing it once. But the whole time, you've been great.
Yeah.
And provided a lot of good insight, and we appreciate it.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. Same.
All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Much love, and we will see you, Lord willing, on Monday.